In the field of world policy, I would dedicate this nation to the policy of the good neighbor, the neighbor who resolutely respects himself and, because he does so, respects the rights of others. And the whole world now knows that the United States cherishes no predatory ambition. 3,000 miles of friendship with no barbed wires, no guns, no soldiers, and no passport on the whole frontier.
Over the past several years, our country has borne witness to ramping controversies surrounding migrants and asylum seekers trying to emigrate into the United States from Latin America. Most of those refugees are coming from Honduras, Guatemala, and El Salvador, the three countries that make up the northern triangle of Central America and have been devastated by U.S. foreign intervention.
Binding these three countries and many more together are the northern Mexican border towns. These towns are melting pots of refugees fleeing the persecution they face in dozens of countries around the world. Tijuana is one such city, home to many who are desperate for the American dream to become a reality.
Nosotros somos del Salvador, del departamento de Sonsonate. Pues nosotros, mi nombre es Carlos Antonio.
Elba Roxana.
It was in Tijuana that we met Carlos and Roxana. Their family was forced to flee the corruption and gang violence in El Salvador. They are now stuck in Tijuana, waiting on the chance that their application for American asylum will go through and bring with it the hope of a better life.
So he had a cousin who also was being recruited by them, and his cousin sort of got involved with them in order for Carlos to be exempt from their recruitment, right? So his cousin joined so that Carlos would not have to join. The gang is sort of all powerful to the point that sometimes they require you to kill one of your own family members to prove that that indeed is your new family.
El Salvador today has one of the highest murder rates in the world and is the world's deadliest peacetime country. The country's history is stained by its brutal 12-year civil war that lasted from 1979 to 1992, killed 80,000 people, and displaced over 1 million more.
In the years leading up to the Civil War, El Salvador suffered from extreme wealth inequality and was controlled by a military dictatorship. When popular organization of the lower classes demanded basic human rights and land reform, the government responded with extreme repression. A civil war broke out between the government and the people, and the United States funding far-right death squads within and separate from the El Salvadoran military to squash the rebellion.
One of these groups was the Atlacatl Battalion, which was not only created but also trained by the United States. One U.S. trainer described them as particularly ferocious. We've always had a hard time getting them to take prisoners instead of ears. In 1989, this battalion murdered 6 Jesuit intellectuals as a display of power and oppression against the rebellion. The battalion was also responsible for the El Mozote massacre in 1981, which killed over 800 civilians and included the rape and torture of the village's women and children. The cover-up of this massacre was led by U.S. Secretary Elliott Abrams, who was recently hired by the Trump administration as the United States Special Representative for Venezuela.
Hold on.
Elliott Abrams supported genocide in Iraq. Elliott Abrams is going to send weapons to Venezuelan right-wing factions to cause a genocide like he did in Guatemala and El Salvador.
Throughout the 1990s, refugees fled the war-torn El Salvador and came to the United States, specifically Los Angeles, when President Bill Clinton initiated his 1996 immigration reform that vastly expanded the types of crimes considered deportable. Many Salvadorans who had been forced into a life of crime by the impoverished conditions they found in Los Angeles were deported back to El Salvador. They brought with them the LA-formed Mara Salvatrucha, or the MS-13 gang. Today, Salvadorans fleeing gangs like MS-13 are often denied asylum at the United States border or deported back to El Salvador, where they again face the danger of gang recruitment or assault. This cycle, started by the US-supported violence of the 1980s, continues to be a positive feedback loop of suffering for people like Carlos and Roxana and many others all across the Northern Triangle and the rest of Latin America.
We have the right, you have the right as American citizens to actually vote people you want in. Not because they have the most money, not because they're the most popular, but because they're the ones that are going to do right by the country. Country is, we are the people. It's the country by the people and for the people, not by the politicians and for the rich.